Good morning and welcome to our Vision Australia webinar titled Staying Safe Online on the 26th of May 2020. I'm Jason Gipps, Vision Australia's National Audio Business Development Consultant, and I work with the radio and audio team, and I am based in Kooyong in Melbourne. Firstly, today I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we work and live across the regions we meet today and recognise their continuing connection water and community. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. Please remember that a recording of this webinar can be accessed later today via our website at visionaustralia.org.au/check-in and chat in case you missed anything important or would like to share the content with someone else. Anyone can access the webinar via that link, so good thing to remember. We encourage you to submit your own questions today during the session, which you can do by using the chat functionality in Zoom. We will answer questions as best we can and as many as time permits. Now for JAWS users, a reminder that you can use the chat function through the keystroke Alt-H. That's Alt-H or Alt-H. Thanks also if you submitted a question earlier. Now I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Vicki Contreras, Vision Australia Paediatric Counsellor. Hello, Vicki.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. I hope you're getting a chance to enjoy some sun like I am today. It's lovely out my window after the fog cleared today.
Yes, it is a good day today.
And of course, everyone else enjoying where they are tuning into us today. So Vicki, to get started, can you perhaps tell us a little bit about your background and your time at VA? What exactly do you do? What is your role?
Yep, so I am the paediatric counsellor and I'm based in the Dandenong office. I provide counselling services to children 0 to 18 years old, including their family, and I am a clinical family therapist and social worker.
Great. We're not too far apart. I'm only 10 minutes down the road at the moment, Vicki. Hopefully, eventually we'll be face to face again. I'm sure we're all looking forward to that. Let's go right back to the start. Now, this might be an obvious question for some people that are a part of our webinar today, but not to others, and that's okay. What does it actually mean to be online?
Yeah, so being online means to be connected to the internet. And my very simple understanding of that is the internet is basically a global and publicly accessible network of computers linked around the world through the telephone lines, cables and satellites. And we pay to be connected on the internet. And once we're connected online, users can have access to an array of services.
Right. I bet sometimes we're on the internet and we don't even really know it, right?
Yeah, that's a high chance.
Okay, so how exactly can the internet be accessed? And this is maybe elaborating a little bit on that. I'm assuming it's not always just the computer sitting in front of you. It's probably not always that literal.
Yeah, that's correct. And it actually does depend on where you are. So, for example, if you're in the work environment, it's likely that you'll have access through your personal computer or laptop. At home, you're probably accessing the computer through your smartphone, your iPad, Google device, your Google Home device, or even gaming consoles for our younger listeners, if they're on today. Some of them have actually gone to school. At home, you may have access to the internet. I already said that, sorry. And in a cafe, you may access the internet through your smartphone again, providing that the cafe actually has Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi connection. Otherwise, you can access it through your smartphone via your data, which is what you pay your service provider for.
Yeah, so often a lot of those electronic devices that we access the internet on can either be your data that you're using or with, that extra level of Wi-Fi technology using someone else's data.
That's correct.
Yes, you don't want to get that wrong when you're overseas, like I was in Korea and using my own data and realizing that it was going to cost me hundreds of dollars.
Yes, that's right. You don't want to be caught up in that.
Okay, so Vicki, what are some of the safety issues we should be mindful when we are online? I guess there's a lot to be concerned about because we hear a lot of negative things in the news, don't we?
Yeah, that's correct. So Again, I think the issues, they're varied, and it really depends on the reason why you're using the internet for in the first place. And what I'm going to go through is by no means an exhaustive list, but feel that because we may have an array of listeners of different ages, I feel like these types of issues will probably touch the lives of all our listeners. So the first thing that comes to mind is actually cyberbullying. And it, I just want to remind listeners that this has not been replaced by bullying, and bullying hasn't vanished because now it's, come online. But the challenge lies there in the fact that the opportunity and accessibility is literally 24/7. So, and that's what it means to be online. And the children don't actually have a break
Yeah.
from the bullying. So they leave school, they come home, and it's still constant. Another challenge that comes to mind are predators and other nasties, so such as explicit photos and videos. But I'll discuss this a little bit further later on. And also, being online makes us vulnerable to identity theft, which is a type of fraud that involves using someone else's identity by stealing their money or gaining other benefits. And some of the common methods of identity theft are hacking. So that means when someone installs malware on your PC and transmits your personal information to their own computer for their own knowledge, and you actually don't know that that's happening. Phishing is another term that's used, and that's basically when you receive an email in your inbox and it tricks you into downloading malicious software like the malware that I described before. And this could be done through obscure attachments. And also another term which I actually recently came across is smishing.
I was going
um,
to ask you about smishing because I've just got my head around phishing.
yes.
Now we're discussing smishing. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so smishing is basically the exact same concept as phishing, only it's done through, not through email, it's done through text messages and maybe even Messenger. And the tricky part about the smishing is that it could look quite legitimate.
Yeah.
And the final two that I just want to alert everybody to is again the malware. So that is a computer software that's installed without your knowledge, and it does perform harmful actions. So you might even notice that your computer is running really sluggish. And the whole purpose for that is to ensure that the person who's hacking into your computer is getting your information. So passwords, your name, your full name, stuff like that. And the last thing that I want to alert our listeners are scams. And scams is a term to describe any fraudulent business or scheme that takes money or other goods for an unsuspecting person. And scams target people of all backgrounds, ages, income levels across Australia. Scammers are getting better and sophisticated in their attempts. And actually, with COVID-19, scams have been on the increase.
Mm.
And a couple of things that have been brought to my attention are the scams around our superannuation.
Yeah.
Um, and other scams like departments such as MyGov. People are getting emails from MyGov, some text messages, and one that I've recently found out about are puppy scams targeting those seeking a furry companion during isolation.
Right. That's not one I heard of, actually.
Yeah, when I was doing my research for the podcast, that came across.
I guess there's always going to be opportunistic people in society, whether they're online or they're knocking on your door. And we should be treating those interactions the same way, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. I can't stress that enough. And I really love the fact that you brought that word opportunistic because that's exactly what's happened during this time in the pandemic.
And I've got my own example. We had to, as staff, fill out an important document online, a questionnaire on COVID-19. And I got an email soon after finishing that looked like it was a legitimate email from the government website that we were using,
Mm,
asking to click on a link and process something. And I thought, no. I clicked on the top email address and it didn't look quite right.
yeah,
And so then I got to the tech team and asked them about it, and they said, no, that you've avoided a phishing scam. So
excellent.
you have to, it doesn't hurt to double check, does it?
That's right.
Okay, wow. So many things and so many new terms that we are learning today. How do we distinguish what is a scam and what isn't a scam? Because they certainly can look very convincing. You know, we can get emails from what appears to be our bank. It looks like it's from our bank. It knows our name. It sometimes, you know, will reference maybe our phone number or our email or our address. It can be easy to, when you're going through lots of emails quickly for one, click on
Yeah.
something and follow something up, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I really want to stress that for more details on how to distinguish what a scam is and what legitimate looks like, you should go to the www.scamwatch.gov.au website, because on that website it has information about what current scams are floating around, but also it has detailed information on clues for spotting fake documents, emails, and dating profiles as well. In addition, you find yourself in trouble, you can check out Scam Watch, or you can contact ID Care on 1-800-595-160. This is a free government funded service which will work with you to develop a specific response plan to your situation and support you through the process. But I really like what you said before, in that you saw that phishing scam, and although it looked quite legitimate, you actually called the IT service to see, hey, is this a real email that's been sent from work?
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to do was bring down Vision Australia at click of a button. I don't want to be remembered as that guy. Can we just recap really quickly the difference between the hacking, the phishing, the smishing, and the malware? Just a couple seconds each.
Yep. So the hacking is basically when a hacker goes into your computer and has been able to download malware by two methods, the phishing or the smishing. Phishing through your email box, exactly what happened to you, Jason. And the smishing could be done through your text messaging or phone. So, but that malware would be on your phone, not necessarily on your computer.
So I guess a different way of connecting with us, but at the core of it, people that are trying to be opportunistic.
That's correct.
Okay. Can I ask you, Vicky? You know, sometimes the experts get caught too. Have you had a situation where you have clicked on something maybe you shouldn't have?
I actually have, believe it or not. I received an email from what looked like MyGov. It had the icon in the email of the MyGov icon, and it had somewhere where I needed to click, which I ended up clicking. But when I looked at the website that it clicked, there was no unsubscribe button. There was no, it just looked really bizarre to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't click any further. And then what I did was I backtracked. So the emails that I had actually received from MyGov, I started to tune into what was the difference. And the difference actually was there was no icon in the original emails. So that was my first sign for something's not quite right here. And then I did ring up MyGov services to see if that's an email that they would send.
Right. That's an interesting thing you raised there because often for someone that's sighted, you can look for those visual cues, and maybe from an accessibility point of view, if you are blind, you might not be able to recognize those differences. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is all more important for our listeners to be able to distinguish what is legitimate and what is real, and and what is fake. And that's where the Scam Watch website does come in handy, because it's not only those visual clues, it could also be from the wording. So if someone is using JAWS, the wording may not make sense.
Yeah, right. If you've got any questions for Vicky, feel free to get them through any time in the chat. So if it's the first time you're taking part of our webinar today, just click on the chat function and type your question in there, and Vicky and I will get them answered to the best we can. You can do that anytime. I'll hold off towards the end, up to you. Maybe you've got an experience yourself that you'd like to share, and Vicky can help unravel that, and you can talk about perhaps how you approach that. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you today and be a part of it. Okay, so Vicky, what are some of the safety mechanisms we can put in place to protect children online, or I guess ourselves? Because
Yeah.
some of those threats, threats are a nasty word, but, some of those challenges are, going to be more specific to children, and others relate to all of us.
Yeah. So as a rule of thumb, I suppose always consider the possibility that if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. Um, so especially beware of any requests of your personal details and money transactions, such as transferring money, providing credit card details, or any unusual payment methods such as gift cards, iTunes cards, or virtual currency such as Bitcoin. If an email pops up or a window pops up on your computer, or a message looks suspicious and it's out of character because it looks like it might be from a friend, but actually your friend doesn't use those types of words, it probably is some type of scam. If someone is calling you to have remote access to your computer, simply hang up. They shouldn't be having access remotely to your computer.
Can you explain that for a second for people that don't understand the idea of remote access? So that would be when someone wants to effectively take over our computer in front of our eyes, isn't it?
That's correct. And for someone, especially for our older listeners, if they're not quite advanced and tech savvy, sometimes, they may be needing some support around their laptop. Scammers may call them because they've been able to understand that there's an elderly person living in that home with that phone number. And they'll start asking questions about, you're having trouble with your computer. If you give me these types of details, I'll be able to access that and be able to support you.
I might add that there are plenty of more senior folk in my life that are more savvy than some of the younger people I know. So it's not always about age, is it? We can all be.
No, it's not.
Now, just a reminder that you can access this video in full later via visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat, or any of the other webinars we've done. So we've got some great ones under our belt already, including around technology. So that might also be helpful for people that are listening and taking part today. A question here from Mary. What is the best protection to include on my laptop? That's a good question.
I think the best protection are passwords, and passwords need to be carefully considered. You need to update them regularly, and don't share passwords with anyone. Even on your smartphones, a lot of people tend to do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
you'll be surprised for how many people use that as their passcode. It's really important not to, but also you have to remember them, which also makes it tricky.
For those that actually have an iPhone, and I'm not sure about Android phones, but there's a great feature on iPhones now, I think in the general updates, and it's a password tracker. So you can actually choose really complicated passwords through your phone. It generates a password
Oh,
for
that's
you.
fantastic.
And so if you're only accessing that website via your phone, then it's really handy because you don't even need to know your password, but only you and your iPhone will know. So look into that at some stage or get someone to help you with that. I'm sure VA's tech team can also assist in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, we were actually in the middle of talking about the safety mechanisms, and I think we were up to, we've gone through the remote access.
Yeah.
Always keeping your personal information secure. So it's not just online, is it? We have to think about the other ways that we have our information available to people.
That's right. And one way we do receive personal documents is still through our post. So some people will put a lock on their letterbox. The other thing that I would love to remind our listeners is that if you are discarding any personal information and it's in paper format, try to shred it if you can have access to a shredder, or cut it up, as finely as possible before you discard it, because otherwise, if you're, throwing away a personal document and it has all your information there, that's very easy for a scammer to pick up that information and actually go through the process of identity theft.
Courtney's raised something which I was just about to get to, but I did get sidetracked, and thank you for bringing it up, Courtney. Courtney says remote access can be useful with a safe organisation like Vision Australia, and that's absolutely important to remember. Courtney says our adaptive tech help desk can remote into your computer to help you with tech issues if you're having difficulty with things like your screen reader or screen magnification. And I think the key to that is that when you approach someone that you know is at a reliable source, so you're contacting someone through an email that you know, such as at Vision Australia, or you're calling that our call center, and they're putting you in contact with one of our people that will offer to remote into your computer, then that's when it's going to be safe, isn't it, Vicki?
That's right.
Excellent. And I must say, remote access to the computer has helped me many times, I can tell you that.
And me.
Now, Benita, is it Benita? Sorry, Benita. Benita says, I have low vision and my eyes get tired and I find it difficult to read a lot of information on a page these days. A lot of sites seem to have so much info that it'll take a week to read. I hear, Benita. Is there any way where short, sharp info can be found? So that's a good question. I guess maybe that question could be said in a way, I mean, you know, sometimes before we sign a contract, they want us to read 65 pages of information. Is there a way that maybe with some companies, banks, institutions, we can call them and ask for those terms to be read out?
Look, I think for the bigger organizations, they will have those accessibility functions and support workers online basically and in person to be able to do that. I think it gets trickier depending on which website you're accessing that information, but I tend to have that rule of thumb of ensure that wherever you're accessing information, that the person who's providing that information is credible.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I guess it's important to be alert, but to not be alarmed, isn't it, Vicki?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so we've looked at choosing passwords carefully. That's an important thing to do. Do you have any other recommendations if you're not relying on, say, the system that I mentioned for the iPhone that chooses a password for you? What are some clever ways that you can come up with passwords, perhaps, without writing them down where someone can find them? Are there any tricks of the trade to maybe think, perhaps a way of rotating between birth dates or addresses or places you've been?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to ensure that you remember them. The second thing is they have to be a mixture of numbers. They have to be a mixture of special characters. And one way you can do that is, the letter A can be a 4. Instead of using the letter A if you're doing somebody's name, or I can be a number 1, as long as and you have to also do uppercase and lowercase, because that makes it a lot trickier for people to know what those passwords are.
Right. Okay, onto social media, Vicki. I shiver at the thought of the things I used to publish publicly on social media, telling people where I'm checking in, where I am. I'm away
Yeah.
from my house for 4 weeks in Thailand. We got very comfortable with social media and probably didn't think of how dangerous it was to share that information. But I guess outside of the information you're literally sharing in posts and things and photos, what about social media settings? So are there particular
Yeah.
settings that we can choose to just have that little extra bit of precaution?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's aware, but in particular with Facebook, and probably with a lot of the other social media platforms, when you join, their privacy and security settings, their default is actually set to public. So you have to go in and into the privacy and security settings to check the box that says private. I know that there was some kind of media around Facebook with that. I'm not sure what's happened with that and if they actually have changed it, but be really careful about that. Um, be careful of how much information you share online. Um, and also with that check-in, I know that a lot of families like to put up pictures about with their children and stuff like that. One thing that I am wary of are the pictures of my kids. I don't actually have Facebook, but one thing that I was told was when I'm putting up pictures of my children on Facebook to ensure that they're not wearing their school uniform.
All right.
Yeah, because that then will alert people to know where my kids go to school, especially if my profile is set to public. So just tiny things like that. Even if you have access to be able to blur certain pictures before you put them up, So not vital information is kind of being put up there and shared.
Okay. We're getting quite a few questions around tech, which has been a theme for these webinars. And just a reminder that you can actually contact Vision Australia to make a personalised appointment with one of our adaptive technology specialists. So they're great people to contact if you've got questions around tech. You can call 1300 847466 or email info@visionaustralia.org with your request and someone will get back to you. We did talk about that app on the feature on the iPhone for managing passwords. Do you know of any other password managers like that for phones or for our PCs? Have you got any idea around that, Vicki? It was a question that was raised.
Yeah, look, not so much with passwords or passcodes, but having said that, one fantastic website to go to is eSafety Commissioner, because that is all about the safety online, and it does have accessibility functions as well.
Okay, Vicki, despite our best efforts, we or our children can be approached by unfriendly characters online. How can we avoid this happening? But also, how do we deal with it if it does occur?
This is a great question, and I'd like to note that answering this question is difficult because the tips given to an adult who is approached online by an unfriendly character is different from the tips given to parents whose children have been approached by a potential pedophile. Therefore, given that I've already provided general online safety mechanisms, I'd like the opportunity to focus on the latter and hope the listeners appreciate this and at the same time will find the information useful. So is that okay to go ahead?
Go for it.
So first, it's important to know that online grooming exists and can happen virtually anywhere. It's important to stay vigilant and keep things into perspective. So what I mean by that is in terms of the population of Australia compared to the population of UK. UK's population is, I think, triple that of Australia's or even more. So the chances of pedophiles is probably higher than it's going to be here in Australia. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen. It's just let's put things in perspective. Like what you said before, Jason, about be alert but not alarmed. The other thing that I'd like to bring our attention to is the common internet acronyms that I think we should all be aware of, and we probably don't know half of them. I know I don't.
All new to me, Vicki, all new to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and even when I'm texting with my friends, they'll use an acronym and I'll have to say, "Hey, I don't even know what that means. Please explain." So some of the things that I believe people should be aware of is one of the common ones that has probably been floating around for a long time is ASL, which is age, sex, location. KPC, keeping parents clueless.
Wow.
Yep. TDTM, talk dirty to me. POS, parent over shoulder. So look, these are just some of the ones that I was able to get off the internet. But if you go to www.cybersafetysolutions.com.au, they actually have a whole list of them. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. Just like technology, it moves really fast. And so does the language around it too.
In the past, I guess things are a lot more visible and apparent. I grew up with, and probably you did too, Vicki, with a whole lot of conversation at school around stranger danger and preparing for if someone perhaps comes up to you as a child on the street and offers candy. These things are happening, but are in a different form, aren't they? So I guess it's really important for us, if we have children or we are caring for young people, to be alert about these things and be prepared for the ways that children can be approached online.
That's right. And actually, you bring me to my next point, Jason, because we need to start becoming aware of the characteristics of grooming behavior online. Because, predators will usually pose as children, and our kids won't know that. And once they're online, and the contact has been made, they'll move towards other means of communication, such as telephone. And they'll only do that by building slowly the trust of that child. So in a child's mind, they're probably thinking they've got, a bestie on the other side of the world who understands them. But in actual fact, that might not be the case.
Yeah, right. Just another note that people can get assistance with changing their screen display by calling the Adaptive Technology Help Desk that we mentioned earlier on, 1300-847466, and they can help with settings and colors and contrast, because we have had a few questions around information on screens and stuff like that, which is a little bit off topic, but it's important to know that that is support that Vision Australia does offer. So much of our life is online now, Vicki, and it's not like what it used to be, where these difficulties might knock on our door and we can suss out if something's safe or not. It's taken on a different form, hasn't it?
That's right. And you know what? Another thing to safeguard against, unfriendly characters or nasties is to tune in to the people in your family of all ages. Observe their behaviors, listen to their words, ask them questions from a place of curiosity and not interrogation. Validate their thoughts and feelings without judgment, criticism, ridicule, or abandonment. I think that's really important, and that's important for all ages, not just parents towards their children. If you start noticing that, somebody is acting differently, out of character, just ask, what's up?
Absolutely. Talking is always the key, isn't it, Vicki?
That's right.
A reminder that you can access this video later on once it is published on our website. That's visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat. So if you do miss any of these important details or suggestions that Vicki is covering off today, you will be able to watch it again later and share it with your family and friends. Indeed, someone that might need to be educated around this, that might be a little bit clueless. That's okay. We still have around 10 to 15 minutes, so we'd love to hear more questions from you. If you've got specific concerns or questions for Vicki and I to cover, please do put them into the chat function on Zoom. Use Alt-H if you're a JAWS user. We'd love to hear from you. All right, now I think this is a good question to somewhat wrap up on, Vicki. Do the benefits of being online outweigh the negatives?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can answer that question with a simple yes or no, Jason. But it is important to bring to light the benefits that the internet has brought upon us. And one thing that comes to mind is the current situation with COVID-19 climate. And although homeschooling has its own challenges, the fact that our children are able to continue their education online is beneficial. They're learning new skills. Not to mention all the other accredited online courses that are available for adults. In a way, we're probably priming our kids to be able to do online courses for when they are able to. We've also expanded our literacy from reading and writing to developing media literacy, which is the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages that they're sending. And although we don't always know who created something or why they made it and whether it's credible or not, which makes media literacy tricky to learn and teach, nonetheless, media literacy is an essential skill in the digital age. Go on.
Yep, that's all right. I was about to go on to another point, so if you had more to follow up on, would that go for it?
Okay. We have been able to strengthen our current relationships and establish and maintain new social relationships and networks. We have been able to expand our creativity, our self-expression, and identity by being able to have multiple conversations through differing media platforms. We have been able to enhance our well-being by strengthening those social relationships and networks, as well as being able to promote and access psychological health services through Zoom, telephone, etc. And finally, we can simultaneously move past the negative aspects, the internet, and understand how we can use the benefits of the internet to empower us. It doesn't have to be a disempowering process.
Absolutely. I mean, because of the lockdown that we've all experienced and having to do things online and remotely, I guess we've had to jump in whether we're ready for it or not, but in a way it's kind of inspired me to review other things that I'm doing in life and how I'm going about them, and see if there's a better way of doing it. So in a way we're connecting, but in a very different way, aren't we, Vicki?
That's right. And I think that's the key point there, that we are connecting, but we're doing it in different ways. And if we're doing it in different ways, what is it teaching us? And if this wasn't happening, would we have learnt it?
A great tip here from Malcolm, and please share your tips as well as questions if you've got some great tips regarding passwords. Malcolm suggests associating a song with the site, e.g., waltzing Matilda for Vision Australia. Use the first letter of the first 8 words in the song. That's an interesting way.
Fantastic.
That might work for Malcolm and maybe not for someone else, or it might. Keep it
Yeah.
in mind. Vicky, I guess. Yeah, I guess this whole lockdown situation and self isolation has brought a whole heap of social issues, but also tech issues to be aware of. So safety is a big thing, and I really appreciate we're having a conversation around this today. Is there are there further resources that we can go to if we are struggling with perhaps interactions, or we know our kids are having trouble with interactions? We've sat down, we've had a conversation with them about the dangers.
Yeah.
Perhaps we want to know how to approach that conversation, or maybe we have had that conversation, but we know we need to make sure that they're aware of avenues outside of talking to us that they've got to process what's going on.
Yeah, so you can always contact Kids Helpline. There's Beyond Blue, Lifeline. Those organisations, especially during this time, have been working overtime to support our children, our young people, families, and really people of all ages who are struggling during this time. Other websites such as our Australian Federal Police, if anybody has experienced those unfriendly characters online, and this is for all ages, you can make a report on that website. You can also do it anonymously through Crime Stoppers. And the other one that I like to call an one-stop shop is the eSafety Commissioner website. They've got tabs there for different ages. They've also put up some webinars as well that are free for users. There's plenty of information out there for everybody.
I think Australians have a culture of not wanting to be dibber-dobbers, for a better word. But a lot of these safety issues online can be resolved by us bringing forward difficulties that we've had, or if we notice, like I did, contacting the IT team at work to tell them, I think this is a bit sus, can you look into it? So I guess online safety for the community is, we all have a part to play in that, don't we?
Absolutely. I think that, one of the things by disempowering the power that unfriendly characters have, or scammers, is to bring those scams and the unfriendly characters to light. So yes, having this conversation is important.
All right, I'm going to spring something on you, Vicky. So
Oh no.
but if you could just recap your top 3 tips for online safety. And it
Top
doesn't
3.
have to be in a particular order. I'll go easy on you.
Okay, so top 3 tips: passwords. And all the other tips around the passwords that our listeners have also provided are fantastic. Make sure you remember them. Make sure that they have a mixture of letters, upper, lowercase, special characters and numbers. The second tip is that if you are discarding personal information that has been given to you by mail, discard it safely. So for example, shred it if you've got a shredder, or rip it up into millions and millions of pieces before you shred it. Another one, if something does look suspicious and your gut is telling you, not sure if this is quite right, do some research about it. If it's coming from what looks like a government agency, call the ATO, call MyGov, see if that actually is an email that they've sent to you.
Absolutely. One of my favorite pastimes is ripping up bills that come into through the mail, and even more so when you don't need that credit card anymore and you cut that up into little pieces.
Yeah, it's quite therapeutic.
That's very therapeutic. It doesn't happen much. Look, one more question that has come through that I think it's worth asking. Thank you very much for this, Patrick. Patrick says, I have been told by an expert in technology that iPhones and iPads do not need antivirus software installed. Do these devices have special protection from things such as malware? That's a really good question.
That's a really good question, and probably one that is out of my scope. But I think having our Vision Australia IT department answer that would be a lot better because they're the experts in that department. I actually believe that all devices should have security and passwords. So, yeah, I think can we get that answered from our IT department?
Absolutely. I think if you do contact the adaptive technology specialists via 1300 8474 66, you can ask those questions. I'm sure they'd be able to answer that. I am by no means a tech expert, but I'm quite confident that there is a little bit of truth in that, Patrick, because a lot of those viruses are designed sort of for Windows platforms. So they often don't make their way through iPhones and iPads. But that's not to say that people can't be doing a little bit of phishing outside of lockdown and send you a text instead. So do not think that you're absolutely 100% in the clear because you've got an iPhone and not an Android device.
Yeah.
Vicki, thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any final words that you'd like to part with?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Thanks to all our listeners. Parting words, just stay safe. And if you do, if there is anything that you can take out of this webinar, I hope you can take at least one thing. If you get rid of all the other 99 but take one, I'm happy with that.
And in regards to your role specifically, how can people benefit from your services and other staff that offer the same kind of things that you do?
Yeah, so basically go to your PSP, have a conversation with them, and they'll be able to link to myself or to any other counsellors around Australia as well.
And, in regards to services, has your role changed that much? Are there any services that are sort of limited now while we are using telehealth services, or is it all effectively still available via telehealth?
Still available. I think the one thing that telehealth has been able to do for counsellors is actually it's been around for a while. Counsellors have been providing telehealth services for a while, so it actually isn't new for us. It's just been expanded during this time.
Excellent. All right. So recapping some of those helpful links, we mentioned Kids Helpline, Australia's only free, private and confidential 24/7 phone and online counselling service for young people aged 5 to 25. Kids can call 1-800-551-800 for Kids Helpline. So that's a service specifically for kids to utilise and to take advantage of. Beyond Blue is a resource providing information and support to help everyone in Australia achieve their best possible mental health, whatever the age, wherever you live. You can call 1300 22 46 36, but an easy one to remember is beyondblue.org.au. That's a really helpful website if you know that someone you care about looks like they're going through something and you would like to learn how to help them, or you might be going through something yourself and want to, get some more information. Of course, Lifeline is 24/7 crisis support and suicide prevention. You can call Lifeline on 13 11 14, but if life is in danger, call 000. That's all for our session today. We did mention that telehealth services are available in all, it actually is available in all states except for South Australia. Appointments can be conducted over the phone, via video conferencing, email, or a combination of these. You can contact our assistive technology specialist as we suggest. You can do that by calling 1300 8474 66. Or, of course, email info@visionaustralia.org. Sometimes we can't always articulate things over the phone. Emails are okay. As mentioned earlier, the recording of this webinar and others before it can be accessed at a later date. It takes us just a little bit of time to get it up. Visit visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat to find all of those video links. Now, last but not least, we'd love you to join us for our next webinar. So our next one, Keeping Your Pets Healthy and Happy, is on May 28th. So that's on Thursday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and then Getting Into Fashion on June 2. I'm looking forward to the crossover of getting your pets into fashion. That's going to be good. 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's June 2nd. There are more sessions to follow, so keep an eye on that link, visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat. Thanks for joining us today. I hope it's been beneficial. Thank you again, Vicki, and thanks to Courtney and Naomi and the team that are in the back end doing all the tech for us to make this happen today. Have a great day and enjoy the weather where you are.
Thank you.